Hey everyone, it's your friend Dan, and you're watching 613 Creatives. Thanks for joining us today. If you are an actor or filmmaker in Eastern Ontario, you will definitely want to subscribe and share this podcast with your fellow filmmakers. We're getting to know and connecting the movie-making talent of the region. Please check out our other episodes and let me know what kind of stories you'd like to hear and which ones you have to tell. This episode is a very special one. It's going to be a little more on the fun side. I have with me a panel of film buffs and movie-making creatives where we are going to discuss our opinions on a number of eclectic cinema topics. We have Nadav Santo.
Hello, hello.
We have Virgo Velasquez.
Hey, what's up?
And we have Mario Radovnikovic.
Take me to your leader. Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
All right. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
For this, I've had this idea for this show for a while to do like a panel and get people's opinions on stuff. I thought it would be a lot of fun. And rather than do kind of the serious topics like the serious filmmaking topics like favorite cameras or favorite director you've worked with or whatever I thought I had a few more sort of pop culture related things rattling around in my head and thought I'd kind of throw those out there first and foremost. So one of those things being in film, what would you consider, and I'll share mine after I hear what you guys have to say, what would you consider a downer ending or downer endings? Which films have the downer endings that you feel really worked for the subject matter?
When you're saying downer endings, you mean like you wish the movie was going on, but then like it's a downer, it's ending, that kind of thing? Or?
No, like a downer ending, like it's not a happy ending. It's the opposite of a happy ending. It's
right.
It's it's just that, oh my God, but it works for the material.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
That was
okay.
like
I only watched that once because I couldn't redo that again. I don't know.
It was horrifying, right? The journey in Krakow and what happened to the Jews in the Holocaust, and then at the end, when the family members are putting down the flowers at the gravestones, and it was like, and the credits are rolling, and then you're just thinking about like everything that happened, and it was a downer, but there was like a little moment of hope, but you still felt fearful.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, it's a beautifully shot film too. Like it's so precise and it's so like the visual storytelling. It's Steven Spielberg at his best. Really piecing things together. And you're discovering this character as you go. And you're right. Yeah, it's a bit more of a story of hope and about finding that hope in that darkness. But yeah, no, Schindler's List, that's a great first example. First thing that pops in my mind is Requiem for a Dream, which I think is like it should be mandatory high school viewing for every health class. It's just, all right, cool. We're gonna start talking about drugs. Here's Requiem for a Dream. Because halfway through, everyone's like, yeah, I'm making money, and then the other half they're like, oh no, I don't want any of that. And I think the downer ending of that, the bleakness and how everybody ends up sort of destroyed by their situation and by their addictions, I think just works towards the warning of that kind of a lifestyle, of that kind of addiction. I mean, today's drug would be social media, and I think that's a pretty good like the connection I think is still pretty, you can sort of see a lot of similarities between that movie and people today.
I was going to add to the point that, the pursuit of that as well. Like what people like in Requiem, what's so effective is the pursuit of the drugs. And even at the end with Connolly's character, and she's in the room of men and they're throwing money at her and this and that. It's like the pursuit of that goal is the drama, and it leads to disaster, especially for those characters. So, yeah, the addiction. Hey, people they have stories about it, right? Where it's just it takes you down a dark alley, and
Hmm.
you're lucky if you can get out on the other side.
You know,
Mario, let's. We still haven't got your opinion on what you feel is the
for
film or
me, the way
films.
I go to, and it's gonna sound probably a little out of the box kind of thinking, but I'm thinking like as soon as you like ask that question, for me, it's the Green Mile.
Okay.
Tom,
Mm.
and I can't remember all the stars' name to be honest with you, but Ed Norton. No, sorry, was not Ed Norton. What's his name?
Tom Hanks. Tom
Tom
Hanks,
Hanks,
No, that's
Clark
Michael.
Tom. I know
Duncan,
Tom Hanks, but the other one that acted completely wild and you
Oh,
know,
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. Yeah. Hmm.
You're
the
just
one that
talking about
was
the,
acting like old loony bin, and they ended up putting him in the chair, like frying his brain. But anyway,
that guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
recall
the
his
downer
name.
for me
His
is,
friends, he had the friends with the mouse.
yeah, yeah, no, 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 him
No,
with the
the guy
glasses.
that
He was
killed the mouse.
cute, but the other one that
Oh,
they end up,
Percy, yeah, the guard Percy,
Yeah,
and
Percy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Him
forgot the
when
name.
he had to
Oh
pee his
yeah.
pants because the other guy grabbed him and held him against the jail door, right?
yeah.
So anyway, the downer on that aspect is the fact that how many times have we come across another person or even another being, and I'm going to reference an animal even, is they do so much, and in a blink of an eye, they're gone.
Yeah.
You're left with thinking about being grateful for what you have, who you're around with, that kind of thing, and you get lost. You get lost in the thing of the security that you're thinking is going to constantly be there, right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
he was in jail, so he was able to go out here and there and heal people. Like, and he went after, and then he didn't have anything left, and he was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was. Could have done so much, good for society, and
Yeah.
yeah, just completely over.
That that's
The
really the tragedy of that story is
yeah.
is it's this miracle, beautiful gift
Yeah.
That's
that
right.
comes, inside of a black man at a time when people not only will refuse to acknowledge it, they'll want to destroy it instead.
Yeah.
It's like why, this could be everything that you've been waiting for, and yet because it's packaged in a way that you can't accept, it
Mhm.
must be destroyed, and instead of seeing that beauty for what it is.
The actor that you were thinking of that played Percy was Doug Hutchinson.
Okay.
Well,
Here,
who's the other actor that the one with the messed up teeth and he acted all wacko and he was
That's
he
Sam
even
Rockwell.
so
flung
you mean
shit at the
the guy that died, that in the chair that caught on fire and all
well,
that?
hold
That's
on,
Michael
I'm
Jeter.
using thing here for a second. Here, let me
He was
I gotta look at
French.
it.
He was
Everybody
the
pull up the IMDb.
yeah. I'm looking at it right now. It's Michael Jeter. He was the French guy, right?
Sam Rockwell, that's who I was thinking of.
Well, Sam
Yeah,
Rockwell. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was
the
Sam
guy that
Rockwell I was thinking of.
drools.
Sam Rockwell. Yeah.
That was like the first time I saw Sam Rockwell, and it like instantly it was like watching Edward Norton the first time in Primal Fear, being
That's why I
like,
keep referring to
"Oh, this
Edward
guy
Norton,
is
and I'm like, no,
good."
it's not him. Yeah,
I keep forgetting
Yeah,
Harry Dean Stanton was in that.
it was an
Wow.
insane cast in that movie. Such a
Oh, I
good movie
know.
too.
It's
yeah,
brilliant. It's a brilliant cast. William Sadler. Like you forget all the people, and it's
the
sometimes
thing
and you
is,
forget too that that's based on a Stephen King story. Like Stephen King wrote
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Like it's
it's like a
so
novella too. It's not even a long.
oh, as
yeah.
soon as
It's
you
not
said Stephen
Sizable
really
King, I got
story.
freaking goosebumps all over me. Like his movies
yeah.
really like made you freaking think. Like
Oh yeah, and
I still
and
remember that.
that scene in the Green Mile that when like Percy does this shitty thing to the guy going in the
Mhm.
chair and he catches on fire and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Like oh my god, that's like to me that's one of the most disturbing scenes
that's right.
in cinema. Oh my god, it's like he's
And it's all
the
about the
guy's still
character, right?
alive and he's cooking. It's just like oh my god, that's just
Mhm.
It is
brutal.
such a great character moment for, I mean, not a great character moment for the character. It's the revealing of that
Oh yeah,
character when he does all that and then he turns around, doesn't even want to watch it
yeah,
because he's horrified by what he's done. It's like, no, 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 turn around and watch what you've just done.
yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
terrible.
Hmm.
So
Michael
Unbelievable.
Clark Duncan did such an awesome job.
Oh God, yeah. God rest his soul. That
yeah.
that man,
I
he
enjoyed
definitely
him in
left this earth too
Armageddon,
soon.
I enjoyed him in Armageddon. Come on, get Papa Bear.
Oh yeah, he was great in everything he did. He was
True, very true. I mean,
he was
even
amazing.
playing Kingpin in Daredevil, Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What a horrible movie, but he did his role really well.
He's
Like,
probably the only good thing about it. If I were to throw down like the downer endings that work for me, the three that come to mind first and foremost is Evil Dead 2. Like
I haven't
that,
seen that.
like it's such a major bummer ending, but it works. It works for the material. Like there's no other way that you could have ended that film. Like the first one is left kind of ambiguous, right? But I mean that works too. But just people say like don't like I mean I first thing I makes me think of is how the studio interfered with Army of Darkness and said, "Oh, that original ending is it's too much of a bummer. It's too much of a downer. You have to change it." Da 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 da. And if anyone's seen the director's cut of Army of Darkness, they know. I mean that the ending that's the ending they should have went with because it was another downer ending, a major bummer ending, and it just would have been so much better. And it wouldn't have looked like this, studio mandated pigeonholed ending that they threw in.
Well, the terminology you're throwing out there.
Yeah. But you guys, I'm just assuming you guys have seen Evil Dead 2, you've seen,
I haven't.
yeah, Army of Darkness and the different endings that they had for it. But
I
anyways,
saw Army of Darkness though, but I mean, I didn't see Evil Dead 2, but I'm extrapolating the best I can what you're saying.
yeah, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. When you watch, you can tell that the ending was doctored. Like it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't. It was made a little more hopeful by this, and it was because the studio wanted it that way because they felt like the original ending was too crappy. It was too much of a downer ending. But Sam Raimi had an ending much like the real bummer ending, like Evil Dead 2, where Ash gets trapped. He drinks too much of the little potion, and he ends up too far in the future rather than going home. Which and supposedly for Evil Dead 4, I guess we would have been fighting Deadites in the future or whatever. Anyway, but anyway. I'm an Evil Dead fan, and that's I think that's kind of a top one that really works. The other two that come to mind are the 1978 or 79 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh,
Humanity dies.
Yeah.
We're all taken over by pod people. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
people.
Done. You know. Like, think about it. I mean, like, how awesome is that? Like, they actually had the balls to do that. The bad guys won. Sorry, that's just the way it is. And I think that's, I like when filmmakers have the bravery to do that, to go there, and that's not, tie everything up in a neat little bow and say everything's going to be okay. Sorry.
Is life ever a neat, tiny little bowl?
Yeah.
Like.
And that's what makes me think of my third choice, which would be Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
It is a downer ending, but
Yes, it
I
is.
mean, as Randall, has anybody here seen Clerks? The fan of Clerks?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like Randall said in Clerks. It's Empire Strikes Back is a superior film because that's what life is—a series of down endings. That's his philosophy. That's quoted right from Clerks. But anyway, that's my list.
One of my favorites, I was going to add this one as a second one. And we talked about this before, Dan, The French Connection,
Yes.
With Gene Hackman. I remember watching that for the first time thinking that Gene Hackman is going to capture the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the end of the movie. Okay, here it comes. I'm waiting for it. And I'm watching it, and the camera just lingers in this dark, decrepit farm that they're in, and then Gene Hackman's character just gets lost in the frame deep in the background, and you just hear the gunshot, and the screen goes black,
Nice.
and that's it. And then you're told that he never caught him, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, but the good guy is supposed to capture the bad guy at the end of the
Yeah.
movie.
And can you
And
imagine French Connection with where they did like a a nice feel good kind of ending? It just
yeah,
wouldn't have
yeah,
worked.
yeah. I think the '70s was the best era for that kind of downer
Mhm.
ending. I think there was
Yeah.
so many of those like shock downer, um, just no happy endings. Just the
Yeah.
bad guys got away with it. The
It's
good guys
reflection
failed.
of the times, right?
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
Another one that just
I
came to mind was actually was Godfather. I mean, technically, at the end of Godfather, it's kind of the wife loses the husband to the family business, and Sarah, you're shut out of it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Who here is? Well, I'm not. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings fan personally, but who here is?
Oh yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen? Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out there for fun. Have you
Mhm.
seen Clerks 2?
No, I have not.
The
seen
second one,
Clerks
no.
yet.
No. Okay. Randall goes on a big rant about. Well, he gets into this. Or highly recommended. He gets into this fight with a customer over which is better. Because there's this one guy, he comes in and he's like going on with the guy behind the counter about how awesome Lord of the Rings is, right? And Randall comes over because he's like, oh God, what the fuck happened to this generation? He's like, there's only one return, you fucking nerds. It's not of the king, it's of the Jedi. And they get into this big debate about which is better. And then Randall's like just trashing Lord of the Rings. It's like, here's the first movie. Here's the second movie. Here's the third movie. And then a couple of customers are like, fucking A. So it's this whole thing, like he's just trashing Lord of the Rings. And
That reminds me so much of like, if you look at Indiana Jones series, like if Indiana wasn't there, the movie still would have gone on. That kind of thing,
Yes.
yeah.
Technically,
there's
that's
that
true.
one-
Yeah, like you look
that
at
one
if you
movie,
look
yeah.
at Raiders. Somebody pointed that out. I don't know where it was. I
Raiders
saw
of
that.
Big
Like
Bang
if you look
Theory.
at Raiders, and he wasn't there, the whole thing would have just played out exactly the same.
Yeah.
He was just
Exactly.
So I think my favorite thing right now is sort of discovering your different tastes in music in movies. I'll say music, but in movies. So yeah, we got Dan here's Clerks. It's got Evil Dead.
Yeah.
We got Virgo with Schindler's List and French Connection.
Yeah.
I got Requiem for a Dream. Fight Club was going to be my other downer ending, and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which is one of my all-time favorite films. Again, just an anxiety inducing, everything just swirls the drain until it ends up down here and you're like, wow, I don't think a good thing happened in that entire movie. So those are my sort of favorites. Mario, what are sort of your top
It's like
three?
the first one was The Green Mile, just because of that. I mean, and then I don't know. It's just popping. The first thing in my head is like even Armageddon, right? Like with Bruce Willis, and we're talking like because, I mean, let's face it, he's not around anymore, right? There's a huge drowning. Yes, the Earth is saved, hoorah, yay! But he's not there. He like basically saved the planet. It's kind of like a downer for me because he just started to really build a relationship with his daughter, despite that they were arguing all the time throughout most of her life, but on the cusp of the world ending, he found that they actually made that connection of father and daughter and how much they actually care and love for each other. And now all she has is memories of him now.
That
That's-
actually brings me to the next topic that I had in mind. What, which in it might be kind of a parallel to what we've already mentioned, but what in your mind would you say, which film would you say, not necessarily your favorite film, but what would you say film-wise, what film has the perfect script?
Oh, wow. That's a little bit of a bias here for a second, just because of the fact that when you're doing a career for 27 plus years, Office Space has the most awesome script for me.
Good choice, yeah.
Mike
Judge is brilliant.
Technina speaking, just a moment. In a Technina speaking, just a moment. Oh my God.
I
You know,
literally, I
like,
was
Mike
just
Judge
thinking
is
I'm
a
about
sorry,
mess.
but are you having the
too. I'm so
case of
glad
the
you mentioned it.
Mondays? You know,
Yeah.
like, how many times you walked up to her, why there's this paper jam? Well, there is no paper jam. You know, like, I
PC
can
load
sit
letter.
there.
What the fuck does that mean?
Exactly.
Funnily enough,
What the
I would
fuck
say
should I
Office
change
Space.
my name? I was Michael first. That fucking blowhard can, you know.
Yeah.
For
Sorry,
me, the
Nadav, what were
best
you
part of
saying?
that movie is the drive to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
You
It,
know,
Yeah.
like Buddy's
I was
like
just
cranking up the gangster rap, that kind of thing. As soon as you know,
he turns his
someone
music down because he gets scared.
does one of these. But the best thing was when Peter's driving. Old man's walking with a walker.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
lanes, changes lanes. Next thing you know, sees the old man in a walker like about like half a block away from him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Mike Judge with that film, I mean, he highlighted so many things that I mean, those are the movies that really stick, right? Or when you get
yeah,
filmmakers that highlight a subject in everyday society that people are thinking about day to day, and it never gets its moment in the sun. And he did that. He
yeah.
he highlighted that 9 to 5 grind and hating your job and da da da. Like there's that speech that the main character, I forget his name.
Well, the character's name's Peter, but
Yeah, yeah. He has that speech with the efficiency guys or whatever, and he's like,
Bob, yeah.
yeah, about how like I mean, basically like everybody
I
just
got
works
eight
just hard
bosses,
enough so they don't
Bob,
get
coming down
fired.
on me DPS reports, you know? Like I got 8.
Yeah, yeah. I got 8 people breathing down my. I got eight bosses breathing down my throat when I make a mistake. So yeah, so his point in the end is that like basically people just work hard enough not to get fired. I mean, like where's the incentive otherwise?
Where's the motivation? Is
Yeah,
actually what his
exactly.
dad was
Right.
like,
So yeah,
you
Mike
know,
Judge is brilliant. Like that, Idiocracy, I think, is another brilliant
oh
thing
yes, thanks
from
for bringing
Mike
that one
Judge,
up.
who's
Do you all agree?
predicting the future for so long now. It seems.
But
But
Dan, I gotta ask you a question on all of you guys. Do you think that for me that movie is a thriller, a horror, a comedy, and a documentary all rolled into one?
Idiocracy?
Idiocracy. Yeah.
Idiocracy? Okay.
I mean, how more relevant is it not unfolding in front of our eyes right now?
Yeah,
You know?
comedy docu comedy. I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
honestly, it's like how many people are having kids right now? All right, sound off.
Yeah.
Anybody have a kid right now? See, you
Not
know,
happening.
yeah. Nice.
you know, that kind of thing, right? But yeah, it's just amazing. The other one that sticks out in my head, believe it or not, that I watched it again, is Ferris Bueller Days Off.
Yes.
Love
I
that
love your
movie.
selections. They're like
That
so
that
random.
that's my
You know,
second
and
favorite.
Breakfast Club is right up there with that one for me. You
That's
know, like
Ferris Bueller's Day Off is my second favorite movie of all time. And when you kept talking about being present and stuff like that, I kept hearing in my head, life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look
exactly,
around once in a while. You could miss it.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So true story. I was in high school when I first saw Ferris Bueller. It was a music class. Teacher was sick, so substitute teacher came in, and they're like, "Yeah, we're just gonna watch Ferris Bueller." So they put on Ferris Bueller, and for the first 15 minutes, I thought it was a documentary on how to ditch high school.
Ditch
I was
school.
literally sitting there going like, "Are we? Is it just? Are we really watching this? This guy's literally detailing out." It took me
Isn't
so
that
long
movie
to
the
figure
first
out it
one
was
that
an
they
actual
broke the fourth
movie.
wall? Wasn't that the first movie that they broke the fourth wall? You know how
My
I think
first
Mel
experience
Brooks
that
might
I
have
love it. Yeah.
Mel Brooks might have you beat on that one. And
Yeah,
he's probably
I'm
broke the
I'm
fourth
sure they've
wall.
broken the fourth wall
Yeah.
before, but I think that was my first
it's still my
experience
first
with like a
recollection of it,
flat
right?
out
Okay.
Yeah.
someone talking, and I'm like, this can't be a movie. They do this in documentaries.
It's
Yeah.
incidentally,
Really?
I first saw that film and fell in love with it when I was homesick from school. Legitimately, I wasn't actually skipping. But yeah, I just love that movie. I could quote it verbatim.
Yeah, it's a great movie to study. I was watching a film theory on it. It's a great movie to study because Ferris Bueller's character is not necessarily the protagonist of the
Mhm.
story. He's actually kind of the antagonist, and everybody else around him, like he never changes. He's like a
Right.
constant, and it's everybody else around him. So Cameron starts off not wanting to leave his bed,
Mhm.
and then ends up being able to stand up to his dad and all of
Yeah.
this. He goes through this whole crazy journey, all because of Ferris Bueller,
Yeah.
who is sort of the main focus of the story. So it's an interesting film to study how you can, play with certain story structures
Hmm.
and sort of elements and shift sort of the focus and stuff and break rules in a very interesting and powerful way.
And
There's
yeah.
another film that did it. It was like almost like a Charlie Chaplin character, almost being there or something like that.
Okay.
Uh, and it's again just like a magical figure sort of enters these people's lives and sort of changes everything, like a Mary Poppins, if you will.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, Mary Poppins OG, but but
I'm
yeah, it's
Mary
an
Poppins,
interesting
y'all.
thing. Yeah, even a very small one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it called Heifer, where he just plays this weird guitar, like heavy metal guitarist who just walks into a family's house one day and starts living there, and they can't get rid of him. And how like
Wow,
their
that's an
whole
interesting
lives
one
get
to
up.
watch.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, another good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And the brilliance. Speaking of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the brilliance of John Hughes, right? Like, I
Mm.
mean, he could have
Breakfast
so
Club.
easily just made like your cookie cutter, you know, teen comedy, what have you. But he went off book, and it's just so much. All of his films, just so much deeper than you know than the stereotypical teen 80s teen rom-com. Like, he actually understood kids of that age, and
Hmm.
he
Yeah,
he he went against convention. Incidentally, he wrote Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 6 days.
Those are brilliant.
he was taking the
fun
day.
fun
Don't need to
fact.
overthink it.
Yeah, well, just I mean, just it just speaks to his brilliance, right? Virgo,
Sometimes
what's
ideas
your
just hit you,
favorite
right?
script, man? What do you think's a favorite or perfect script?
I remember when IMDb had forums, and I would like scour the forums and see kind of like what people were thinking about movies. And I remember one topic arguing this point about the movie, and I mentioned it before with you, Dan, the film Network,
Yes,
uh,
brilliant movie.
1976, right?
Yeah.
And the dynamics with the satire in the film and the business side of the film, the romance, um, the character dynamics that happens throughout the movie, and just the monologues that go
Hmm.
on in there that are just so word for word, pitch perfect. I've done it myself. The monologues that I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to
I'm
take
gonna
it
take
anymore.
it
I've done it.
anymore. Yeah,
I've done it for acting classes, and it's
nice.
just like every time I say it, it's my number one monologue I go in with if I'm doing one, and it's just like I get rejuvenated every time I say it. I'm just like it's so pitch perfect to any time
Yeah.
that you're in, whatever era you're in. It's just so precise, and you don't have to change a word to make it fit.
Hmm.
The era that you're in. So, yeah, I think that one for me is probably the most perfect script, the least amount of fat in it. There's no like scene that leaves you, oh, why did they add that scene in there? That does nothing. Every scene works for the character, and yeah, so for me, that's the creme de la creme, the cherry on top.
Yeah.
It's interesting to mention Network today because there's certain films in the 70s that if you remade them today and just updated, like didn't change much about the script, like Taxi Driver is another one that, like if
Yeah,
you just reshot it today, you
yeah,
wouldn't have to change anything in the script and it would be as, if not maybe more relevant, And
Hmm.
Network, this idea of someone having a mental breakdown on air and then
Hmm.
it gets ratings, so then they try to sell it as a package of like, could you do that again? Could you continually, And then it reminds me
yeah.
of the millennial pause, which I don't know if you've heard about the millennial pause, but it's what
Hmm.
millennials do when they're about to film on social media and they hit record and they wait for the red light to come on. And so and then they start performing,
Yeah.
you
Mm,
know,
Okay.
but there's a split second where once they hit it, it actually starts recording before the red light shows up. And so you
Right.
get this
right.
pause between, them waiting and then
Ah.
them performing. And if someone sits together a whole montage of this one influencer doing this, and it was just pause before this, pause before that, pause before, and full on crying. Literally, you saw, and it was like, oh my God, just the sheer performance of all of it, where it's like it's not
Wow.
like what is truth?
I mean, when you say that, it makes me think of like the whole reason that we are doing what we do, um, in terms of like filmmaking and creating that. Essentially, when you are filmmaking, you are creating an alternate. You're in an alternate world, and the goal is suspension of disbelief, right? It's to create a a truth that can speak to the broadest audience possible, even though everybody may have different opinions, and that's a pretty lofty goal, right?
Yeah.
But
It's
getting back to sorry, Virgo, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say, it's I always find that it's a game of perception.
Hmm.
Everyone has the information that they take in from the external environment, right? The
Mhm.
external environment will tell you things, and then our mind and our brain will compute all that data, and we have different perceptions about what people are doing, who they are, what they're doing, how does it
Hmm.
relate to me, and then that becomes what you believe in. That becomes your truth.
Yeah.
And I think and sometimes that truth is distorted, right? Sometimes that information you take in is wrong, but
Yeah.
you in your head you believe it, and then the actor has to believe it as well. And I think that's what makes the villain so interesting. You watch a movie like The Man with the Golden Gun with James
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bond,
Good example.
and Saramanga, who's on an island. How does he kill people? He puts them through an obstacle course in his like mansion, and for him, that's an effective way to kill people. And he has like a Bond like a wax figure because he's just like Bond's my enemy. I have this
Nemesis, yeah.
obstacle course, and when he's actually going through it with Bond, again, he's a villain that thinks what he's doing is correct. He
Hmm.
thinks that what he's doing, how he hates Bond and this and that, that this is the right way. And but it's like when you watch it, it's like, wait, this is so ridiculous. Why do you have to put up an obstacle course?
It's a gentleman thing.
To
It's a gentleman's sport to hunt that
right?
way, right?
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And that's his truth. He believes that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's his perception of reality. Whereas someone else, like me or whoever, they're like, what is this guy? This guy's crazy.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's probably been quoted many times in many different films that every villain is the hero of their story,
Yeah,
Hmm.
right?
yeah, 100%.
If to get to mine, I know a number of you know already. You probably already know already that I'm a huge Back to the Future aficionado. So I'm going to be a little bit biased. I mean, I could easily go the, you know, film intellectual, go back to my film school days and say, oh well, Citizen Kane and there's like there's a huge list obviously that are important films, and I think a lot of people could really um, could say boil it down and say, well, this is the perfect script for sort of analytical reasons. But I'm going to go with obviously my biased personal favorite and say Back to the Future. It does have its flaws, but
No, stop. No, that's not. Come on.
it does have its
Time travel
flaws.
doesn't work that way, guys.
Don't destroy my universe.
But I think it's I mean, there's perfection and imperfection, and like I was saying before that I appreciate actors are not as well actors too, but I appreciate filmmakers that go off book and are brave enough to go in to break convention and go in a different direction. And that's why, like, a lot of people, they malign Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, and they think like, well, that's horrible. It's dark. It's not. It's definitely not the best one. It's my personal favorite because
I
it's
love it.
not. It's not. It's dark. It's different. It dared to go there. It dared to rip people's hearts out and
I
do all
agree
that
with
And
you
crazy
it
on
might
shit.
have
that
the
on that one. I
it
do
might
agree
have the
with you on
best
that one.
sound.
But go
It
ahead,
might have
Drew.
the best soundtrack too. It might have the best soundtrack too.
The
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
march was it the March of the Slaves? It's called or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh my God!
yeah,
Like John Williams, like just chef's kiss, right? I
Hmm.
mean,
yeah.
just
Anything
brilliant soundtrack.
goes.
Out of those, I agree with you, Dan. That was like the best one for what it is. The one that actually makes me happy out of all of them is three with Sean
Okay,
Connery.
Sean Connery,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness, it's just it's a light movie yet like
Hmm.
there's this impending doom, but you know what? It's almost like you're like having a good buzz while the
Oh
world
yeah,
might end with the Germans, right? So
yeah.
that for me one, but I go on like a Temple of Doom and Back to the Future. You're saying?
Oh well, Temple of Doom. I'm not going to say that Temple of Doom is necessarily the perfect script. When I think of perfect scripts, that's not necessarily the one that comes to mind. Although I would never trash it because I mean I love Steven Spielberg,
Hmm.
and George Lucas. But Back to the Future, a lot of people analyze that and say, well, I mean, the really critical critics, they'll analyze it and they'll say, well, Marty doesn't change. Like, there's the hero's journey, right? And he doesn't change. Like, he doesn't learn anything. He doesn't, he comes home and what's the payoff? Well, his parents they stand up for themselves. They got more money. They're essentially 80s yuppies. They're,
The
they got
car, the truck.
yeah, there's all this financial gain and prosperity. And it's like, what kind of message is that? And it's like, well, it was the 80s. Like, that's how we rolled in the 80s. Like, I mean, it's so indicative of the time. And it wasn't afraid to say, well, you know what? I'm not going to do the traditional, like, hero saves the day and learns something about himself. And that's all fine. And that's great. I love movies like that. But Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, they had the balls to say, well, you know what? We're going to go with, maybe it's not so bad to be greedy in the 80s. Maybe with everything that Marty went through, maybe he deserves this. Maybe he deserves to have, parents he can look up to and siblings that, have prospered and all these kinds of things. And I mean, that's just such it's such a left turn from the standard, learning something about yourself and what have you. That I just, I just it makes me admire it even more. So Back to the
Just
Future in many ways with the juxtaposition between all the reflections between this things going on in the 80s and things going on in the 50s and how they played on one another. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's the reason why I fell in love with the film and the trilogy. It's just so brilliantly written. Um,
Hmm.
that
See,
that that
I
that takes
love
top
those
spot for me.
three movies myself. I mean, look
Hmm.
at number Back to the Future 2. Like, yeah, you get Marty gets rewarded, his family gets rewarded for all that effort, that kind of thing. But it also shows the fact that I love the portrayal of the fact that like you're so greedy, it's so dirty and like desolate and that kind of thing. Like leaves you empty. Yeah, you got money, whoop de doo, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Like, are you really happy? Well, Biff didn't look really too happy with being
Yeah.
in a hot tub with two women that kept there's constantly angst and anger
Hmm.
with all that money that you got. That was a symbolic when it comes to greed, right? And
Hmm.
then forces and then cements that idea greed is bad. No, it's not, but yes, it can go to that direction, right?
Yeah.
And
Incidentally,
which
Biff
You
was
know,
modeled after Donald Trump in Back to the Future too.
there you go. There you
Virgo,
go.
go ahead.
I was gonna say another time traveling film in that kind of same period, Dan, that I actually recently watched just because it was on streaming,
Mhm.
was the first Terminator movie.
Okay.
Mm,
And
hmm.
and I was
Brilliant.
watching it again, and I was in the writing of this like future that when we watched it as kids, like growing up, we didn't think like it was real, right?
Mm.
And then when I rewatched it, I was like, hold, like it was so believable what Reese was saying to Sarah Connor about the future and it's AI and machines and this and
Mm-hmm.
that. I was like, damn, this is some good writing. Like it's
Oh yeah.
still like timeless, right? Like you could see it becoming a reality more and more. And I think even just the story structure of the Terminator and Reese and like they're kind of battling each other, and then Sarah Connor sort of caught in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and the Terminator being like this Michael Myers serial killer type that's going to different houses, and just the structure and the payoff in that, and the fact that Schwarzenegger has really very little lines, but he makes it so effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like the role was born for him, right? So,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
just for writing and story structure, and just like we're talking in a like a 90 minute, almost like a 90 minute package, right? Like the first Terminator, like it was,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mhm.
not this overblown out thing. And obviously, the second one is like an action masterpiece. Like you just can't go
Absolutely.
wrong with that. But yeah, definitely. I thought that was an interesting. I just saw it recently. I'm like, oh man, this is such a great film. Still, it holds up. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Out of all of them, like all the sequels to Terminator, the only three that stick out of my mind that I find enjoyment for those reasons were what you were saying, and also like really profound. Yeah, keep rewatching them, still get something out of them. It's the first,
Yeah,
second in Dark Fate where she comes back at the last one that they did.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that those three stick out in regards to what you just shared. So that's really brilliant,
Yeah.
freaking right there.
Incidentally, those are the only ones that James Cameron had anything to do with. He didn't have anything to do with
hmm
any of the ones in between.
No wonder
And
I like them so
right.
much.
yeah, and James Cameron, Canada represent, right? Canadian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's on the top of he's literally the king of the world, in terms of filmmaking, and he's Canadian. But yeah, I mean James Cameron is.
just every other Canadian tends to procrastinate putting something out. Like, I mean, come on, let's go. Avatar number three now.
Oh
Four,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, James Cameron, I mean, he thinks big. Obviously,
Yeah,
he's not afraid to be a daredevil filmmaker, and I admire that. I mean, if you look at, I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, you look at, the Terminator, Aliens, Terminator 2. Like, I mean, not only did he with a sequel outdo the original once, he did it twice with Aliens.
hmm
He didn't have anything to do with the first one, but he made a better sequel than Alien, which a lot of, arguably, I mean, some people still feel that Alien is better in some ways. And I can certainly agree with that. It's definitely the, horror, haunted house in space type thing, the ultimate horror, haunted house in space. And, is Aliens is balls to the wall action. But I mean, it just speaks to James Cameron's brilliance, how he was able to outdo such profound work, not only with Alien, but even with his own, with Terminator. He
yeah.
just outdid it.
hmm
He keeps outdoing himself, and yeah, no, I wouldn't want to work with James Cameron because I've heard he can be a real he can be a real Nazi to
But
work
your
for.
experience with him will probably be different than what everybody else
Yeah.
experienced, right? So, I mean,
I did a master class with James Cameron, and he kind of lamented a little bit about how he used to treat his actors and how he used to treat his crew and stuff like that, because he became known as a guy who was just this belligerent director. And he kind of lamented a little bit in the masterclass, saying, like, I look back at how I kind of treated those people, and I had to do it all over again. For the sake of the film, how I treated people wasn't worth it. Um, eh, you know, um,
He made fun of
so yeah.
himself in Entourage for that when he was directing Aquaman,
Oh
and he was
yeah.
just
Oh
like,
wow.
that in 10 years we won't even need actors, and he's saying it to the actors, and you're like, wow,
Oh man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my God. And that makes me think of what Virgo was saying about how Terminator was very postmodern in the sense of how it was talking about AI and all these things. And when people were starting to get scared as to where Chat GPT and stuff like that was going, James Cameron came right out with it, and he's like, "I fucking warned you.
Yeah.
Here we are." Like, and
So
it's true.
did I, Robot.
Yeah. But yeah, we don't have Skynet yet, thankfully, and
Wait, that we are aware
It's called
of.
X, but
We're aware
yeah, that's all that.
maybe
Yeah.
we're aware of. Better answer.
Yeah.
I've got just with all this whole conversation, I wanted to I wrote down 3 films that I'm like they might have the perfect script in my opinion, but I was enjoying sort of again hearing your reasoning for the choices that you made. So one of my it's not even like I can't even say it's like my top 10 favorite films, but it's just a film that's when it dropped on TV on Superstation on channel 47 when I was a kid, it was like everybody's just stopped and
Oh my
watched
God, Super Channel.
it. Super
First
Channel,
choice,
right?
Super
And,
Channel.
A Few Good Men
Oh,
is
Yes.
Aaron Sorkin's
brilliant.
first feature film based on his play, and it is
Oh, it's based on a play.
like just structurally, just the storytelling. It's just so crisp and clean and so polished. Like quite literally so polished. So I always think that that's a really good choice. I mean, again, like Dan, we could go like Chinatown or like
Oh yeah.
all the classics. But I think A Few Good Men is really good.
Jack Nicholson
A
seems to
recent
show
one-
up in that list a fair bit.
Which one?
So Jack Nicholson seems to show up in that list a fair bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, funny story is that shooting that whole courtroom scene where he does his whole monologue. They were like, all right, yeah, like we'll shoot you for 3 days and then you can go away and we'll have some sit in. He's like, no, I'll be there the whole time.
Nice.
So he was there on everyone's coverage doing that monologue.
Really?
As intense.
Oh,
He's like, I
wow.
love to act.
Way
I
to go,
love to
Jack.
act.
No kidding.
That was a terrible
Wow.
Jack Nicholson impression. I apologize. One movie. Whenever there's a movie that I know my mom would never watch, but is good enough that I'm like, you really should watch this though.
Showgirls.
A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place is the most recent one.
A Quiet Place.
Where I'm like, it is so well made. Like I love John Krasinski, and if you haven't seen, what's his first film that he did with Matt Damon about the fracking? Oh God, I can't remember. Anyways, go see that. That is also a great film that he wrote and directed. But A Quiet Place is really, really good. And then might be a little controversial, but American Beauty I think is literally one of the most perfect scripts ever
Brilliant
written.
film.
Like it's one of those uncomfortable situations where you're like, it really should be studied, but I understand the trepidation, but it is just wow. Like there are few films that leave me breathless. Castaway was one, and American Beauty was another one.
Yeah.
So
speaking
American
of downer
History X,
endings,
by the way, is another great downer movie.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of downer endings, I mean that's brilliant. It's brilliantly shot, brilliantly written.
Speaking about with Kevin Spacey, right?
Spacey, yeah.
First time I saw him was in the movie Negotiator with Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, okay.
That was a movie that was really like. I felt immersed. I felt the understanding of what the bleep goes on in such a scenario, right? Like in a hostage situation, a lockdown situation.
Yeah.
But what I want to bring up about Kevin Spacey, I just was self-aware. It's like these are great movies, but ever since his freaking scandal and stuff like that, it's kind of like until you mentioned it, I didn't even think of the movie. And these are brilliant performances and brilliant movies as well, and wonderfully made. I mean, he did an awesome job in House of Cards, to be honest. Like I was enthralled every freaking episode, and I was like going, "Gee, isn't that really like kind of like opening up the White House? Hey, look, this is your dirty underwear right on TV." Like. So,
but you know what?
I'm bring up that point. Like, do you guys find that you like based on what happens with particular actors, do you kind of like, don't even think about some of the films they're in?
With Kevin Spacey, no, because his roles he tends to be creepy, and I'm just like, it makes sense. It makes sense. in American Beauty,
Hey, good
right?
perspective. All
Like,
right. Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
perspective.
like,
Typecasting.
and look at Usual Suspects, like in Seven,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
those suspects.
Totally
brilliant,
manipulated.
brilliant. That one is always my
Yeah.
go-to movie whenever I just want to just get, have
he
brain go
always
left
plays
field, right
creepy.
field.
He
Seven.
always played creepy. It's like he was telling us what he was without him
Kaiser
Yeah.
explicitly
Sose.
telling us.
I'm Kaiser Sose.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that played? He was a black tux with a red shirt. Like he sounds like he's mumbling all the time.
Oh,
His
Benicio del
performance
Toro.
is
Benicio del Toro.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 His
So
performance is
Benicio del
phenomenal.
Toro, the reason why he mumbles is because he, at one point before they started filming, realized that his character does not advance the plot at all. So it literally doesn't matter if you understand him. And when he explained it to
Oh.
Brian Singer was like, "Yeah, all right."
Go ahead, knock
It's
yourself out.
brilliant. I mean, you gotta love to work with directors that actually like flex like that, and it
Mm.
turned out like so brilliantly.
Yeah, it's
Another.
so memorable. I
Yeah.
mean, I would, if you were the director in that situation, and an actor came up and said, "Yeah, so I realize my character is pointless to your movie. Can I do this?" You'd be like, "Yeah, I'm really sorry that I wrote you a pointless character. I just realized
Dude, I
this
feel
now.
bad for him.
Yeah.
Do what you want."
Another Kevin Spacey role knocked it out of the park was Seven.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
creepy again.
Again, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
he does creepy well,
Yeah.
and that's like probably the
Yeah.
pinnacle of creepy right there.
Oh,
Seven changed the
that's
game.
one of my all-time favorite directors is David Fincher.
Oh, David Fincher is a genius.
I have always strove to be like, I want to make a Fight Club. I want to make a movie that, like Network, like so many
Mhm.
others, you could watch it today and be like, oh gosh, this just keeps getting like a fine wine more relevant.
Speaking
It
of
just
speaking of
ages so
Alien,
well.
I feel really bad about his experience in Alien 3 and
Oh
all
yeah.
the
Yeah.
shit that he had to, deal with the studio on that, all the studio interference.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it was the start of his career, and
yeah.
he is also a shoot it 60 times
Oh yeah,
type director,
he's a
and
Stanley Kubrick, is he?
you guys know
he's
that
like a
there's a
Stanley
TV show
Kubrick. Yeah,
Aliens
yeah.
coming out on FX?
What's
So,
coming on FX?
A TV show Aliens.
Oh yes,
oh,
yeah,
really?
Alien Earth. Yes, yeah, it's coming out in the summer, I believe. Yeah,
Nice.
I don't know what more story you can make out of that. To me, it's like a
it's
rehash and a rehash and a rehash.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a big
I
Alien
mean, look at the
fan.
whole Predator Aliens thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
sure, they're entertaining, but I wouldn't spend $15, put my butt in a theater to see that. That kind of
yeah,
thing. Like, I saw the trailer, I'm like, going, I'll wait till it comes out
yeah.
on demand or something like
For me
that.
personally, the only relevant Alien films are Ridley Scott original, James Cameron's Aliens, and Alien Romulus. I was thought was pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of the of Prometheus or Covenant, unfortunately.
Yeah, me neither.
hmm
I don't
Yeah.
know. I think Ridley Scott was kind of off his game, and
Visually stunning film,
oh yeah,
Prometheus.
for
But
sure.
I gotta be honest with you, it was boring.
Well, not only that, but I think like Ridley Scott. I mean, he kind of crapped all over a really what was really already established a really interesting mythology. They had this in the first one. There's like thousands of eggs and this derelict ship and this, the alien that died in the gunner seat. He basically looked like he's fossilized. He'd been there for thousands of years. But then some android from Earth retroactively came up with the aliens like in modern times. Like what? Like it just it was originally a much more interesting mythology. It's like you don't have all the answers, and it's something that's potentially been around forever, and it just I don't know. It just kind of for me it just kind of crapped all over mythology. It wasn't nearly as interesting. And I like how Romulus kind of glossed over that. I love I'm gonna mispronounce his name. Is it Fede Alvarez? Fede Alvarez, who did like Don't Breathe and Romulus.
Yeah.
I really appreciate his style, and I really appreciate what he did with that one. And yeah, I think it not quite up to par with the first couple of them. But yeah, it's in good company, and yeah, I'll be interested to see. I mean, I'll at least check out Alien Earth and see what they do. I mean, it's it's here we go back into prequel territory and like what really can you do? But
So
I guess we'll find out.
Did you guys enjoy Predator at all? Like
Oh,
I
Predator!
enjoyed
Oh,
the first
yes,
two Predators and Prey.
Hmm.
The other ones I need to rewatch. You
yeah.
know,
Predator Two
Prey
gets
was
a lot of
actually a
flack.
good take. Say again.
I was gonna say Predator Two gets a lot of flack, but it's actually a pretty decent sequel. Like, I mean, every at the time I remember
Danny
everyone was
Glover
like,
played the freaking really awesome part, man. I
"Yeah,
laugh every time. Like I feel his angst, I feel his anger, I feel his like the fact is like, yeah, I'm in effing hell here. Like seriously, why did you ask to come here? Are you like stupid?
I remember at the time, like everyone was crapping all over it because, like, oh, Arnold's not in it. Well, Arnold doesn't have to be in everything, you know. Like, I
No.
mean, Danny Glover can bring it, and he did. And
He
it's
carried that. Well, he didn't
mhm,
carry the movie. The movie just like wrapped around his character. Like he's trying to
mhm.
understand. And who was it? What's his name? Blondie there, freaking Keys. His name's Keys, the FBI guy. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
Ducey,
God,
right? His last name is Ducey.
yeah, oh yeah, Busey,
Busey, yes, yeah.
Busey,
Gary
Gary
Busey.
Busey.
Gary
That's it.
Busey. Oh my God, yeah, he's a
oh,
nut
that
bar.
guy.
I mean, he did well. Not to digress from too, but he did an awesome job with Keanu Reeves at Point Break. I like that
Yes,
movie too.
yeah.
But back to the Predator with Danny Glover, like the whole movie kind of like really envelops and wraps around him is just like freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, he does a great job, and I think Predator Two. It's a decent sequel. It gets a lot of flack, but it's a decent sequel, and I think it really kind of flushes out the mythology a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
you see multiple predators. You see like they've been visiting Earth for a long, long time.
Mhm.
There's the whole xenomorph skull that they've kept. So it really kind of flushes things out. But yeah, I agree too. Like the other ones, like the Alien versus Predator is like no, thank you, not interested. And but Prey was quite good. And I
I
thought Prey
like the
was.
story in a different point perspective of what Predators were about.
Hmm.
They're honing their skills on this planet. So yes, they're bringing aliens from other worlds,
Hmm.
including humans are aliens to them from
Hmm.
other worlds, and actually bringing them and finding the best ways to hunt them and train up their kin. Right.
Yeah,
I love the perspective of that. I think they're making Prey too, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
doing another sort of prequel type thing.
Yeah.
So
So what's
seemed
the
pretty
what's
interesting.
the line for you guys in terms of like don't bother making another Aliens or another Predator or don't remake this movie is it's like it kind of sounds like as long as they sort of stick to the mythology but expand it a little bit but don't reinvent the wheel by disrupting what was before. I just feel like at what point like what's the line for you guys where you're like don't cross that line and remake the
I,
same movie because you're just gonna start destroying you're just start
Well,
eating
when
your
you're
own
forcing
tail, right? Like
it,
you're
when you're
just gonna
forcing it for the sake of the dollars, like that, you're not putting it like when you're
Hmm.
for like I mean, it's like I said, the whole Predator versus Alien movie. Okay, cool concept to have them two go at it because of the comic books. That's what they did, right?
Yeah.
But again, they don't stay true to even to going on the comic book line. I mean, or even some of the graphic novel movies that getting produced too. It's like people know and develop an imagination based on what they've read. I
Hmm.
can't think like when you go beyond that or try to reinvent something. Like, I mean, I did one thing that was pissed me off big time was Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. The
here we go.
black Spider-Man suit was not a just a black version of his red and blue. It was a
Yeah.
completely, different type of symbiote. That was like a huge white spider. Like, I mean, okay,
Hmm.
look, I might be blowing it out of proportion. A costume's a costume, but if you're gonna do artistic, things like at least do something relevant to the storyline that's developed over decades. You know what I mean? Like, and you bring it out and you try to update it. Don't try to update it because a lot of the people have actually read the story or heard it
Hmm.
from someone who's read the story. Like that for me is that basically it's like you got to stop forcing it. Like yeah.
it's interesting because that especially Spider-Man 3, like that was when I went to go see Spider-Man 3, I took 20 people from my film class because I had just moved to Vancouver in
Yeah.
2006.
Oh,
I told the teacher, I'm like, I'm missing this class. I have to go to the theater and buy 20 tickets, and then whoever wants to come, $10 and they're yours. Right? And so 20 of us went to the theater, all sat down in a little chunk, a little section. The film ends. I had 20 people turn and look at me, and I went, "That was garbage." And they all went, "Oh, thank God." And then we
oh,
spent the next 2 hours drinking and ripping that movie to shreds.
oh, dude.
Uh, well, yeah,
I
that was back when they didn't have the courage to like put Wolverine in a yellow suit,
yeah.
No,
or
it's
what I
just
feel.
Sony gets stuck in their laurels, like I mean,
Oh, no one's gonna like it. It won't translate, and yet
oh, look at their
now.
movies
Yeah.
that they keep putting out. Madam Web tanked, that kind of thing.
Oh
Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
Mm.
Enjoyed
they
it
have no they have
to a
no
point.
respect.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it to a point. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
rushed story, or it's a rushed origin story,
yeah.
like for me, that's where it ended. It's like, okay, here's the beginning, blah, 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 and there you go. Thank you for your $15. Have a good day.
So to go back to certain Marvel things like the with the things that they changed because you said the black suit for the Spider-Man, which I understand. Yeah, the specifics. I understand why they shied away from it because they weren't sure how it would translate, and they're not. This was before they realized how many people were just comic book nerds. They didn't
Hmm.
know the numbers.
Yeah.
For me, the bar that said they finally understand, like Marvel finally understand, is when they created Mysterio and they didn't shy away from any part of it. And I was like, this
Hmm.
is this is amazing. This
Yeah.
back in like early
I enjoyed that
2000s, like
movie,
they
but
never
also
would
that
have thought
Mysterio
of like,
pissed me
no,
off.
get the fishbowl off of his head, and everybody would have lost their minds. For
Yeah.
me, it was the thing that Marvel has done recently that really upset me was Michelle Jones for MJ.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I don't care that she doesn't have red hair. I don't care that, like it's Zendaya. Like, why do you call her Michelle Jones?
Yeah.
The only reason is because, well, if you know that it's MJ, you'll know that they're going to get together. And I'm like, okay. So when you put on a play Romeo and Juliet, change the name to Janet so they don't know what they're watching? Like,
Yeah.
what is the reasoning behind that?
Yeah.
Because now you've just insulted the fan base
Yeah.
who go,
I
I mean, at
think
the end of 2 hours, go, wait, that's MJ?
I
Why would you
agree.
not call her Mary Jane? Like, why would you change her name? But
Honestly,
they
that's
they had
where
they
it
had
really
Mary Jane
stems from.
before, and it was like, so yeah. For me, it was just like they didn't want the gimmick to be blown that it was MJ, and I'm like that upsets me. That's like having a movie play 2 hours and then he wakes up and it's just a dream, and you're like, so what did I just watch?
Yeah. What was
Aside
the
from two
point?
hours of my life, that's
Yeah.
this is what. So I brought up the topic,
Yeah.
and my sort of equilibrium for sort of the topic is remaking Psycho
Oh
today.
God. Yeah.
What
Why?
would you bring? Like, what could you bring to Psycho today that
Hmm.
would make it more relevant than the original?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't really
Yeah.
feel like there is even now. I know they remade it, like a decade or so ago with Gus Van Sant,
Hmm.
and it flopped because they're like, this is the same movie. Like, why
Was
remake
it
it?
Christian
Yeah.
It's almost
Bale,
like
the main actor in
the
that one?
live remake of all the Disney movies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like the Birds, just sticking on Hitchcock, the
Hmm.
Birds, you could remake that because the technology
Yeah.
is vastly better, and you could do a lot of really cool shit with it,
Yeah. I would
even though it's
argue,
a
I
classic.
mean, apologies to the Alfred Hitchcock fans out there, but personally I found the Birds rather boring.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I do agree that it could definitely be improved upon. I'll speak to your point about the where you draw the
Your
line
threshold, yeah.
about your topic. There's a couple of things that I feel really strongly about in that regard. Um, well, and this is going to sound bad at first, but it definitely is not. And it's the 2016 Ghostbusters, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that they're women. It's the fact that Ghostbusters, the original, was lightning in a bottle. If you looked at the script on paper, like, back in the day, I mean, I'm sure there's studios, if it weren't for like the clout that, the cast had, I mean, I'm sure most studios would look at this and be like, guys going into business for themselves to catch ghosts doesn't make any fucking sense. But somehow they make it work. On paper, it makes no sense, but they make it work. It was lightning in a bottle. It was like 2001: A Space Odyssey or Jaws or whatever, like the classics that are milestones that stand the test of time. To me, Ghostbusters is right in that same category. Back to the Future, what have you. You can't remake that. You can't. Lightning only strike. Forgive the forgive the pun, but yeah, lightning only doesn't strike twice. You can't recapture that magic. There's nothing that they could have done to improve upon the original, and that's why I think remaking Ghostbusters is just a stupid idea. Regardless of who the
like
cast was.
as women, gender aside, that kind of thing. But I agree with you. To me, that was like nothing more than watching Adam Sandler's Pixel.
Yeah.
Kind of like comic-y and almost a Batman, the 1960 show with Shazam, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
I enjoyed the most is their Ghostbuster Afterlife, and I
Mhm.
enjoyed Frozen Empire. Found
Yeah.
Frozen Empire to be a little bit rushed
Yeah.
through it, because it would have made I would have sat there easy for like 3 hours watching that. Oh my God, the
Yeah.
story was immersive. The effects were really well done and tasteful. Okay, I think the performances were really good too. I mean,
Yeah.
and so it's really weird to see Ant-Man like in a Ghostbuster movie, but
Yeah. Yeah. My thing on
I was just
on
waiting for him to go like this, when he puts on the freaking ghost busting suit to go like, find me
yeah,
now, Ghost
exactly. Yeah.
Man.
To put on the
Yeah,
suit, yeah, like Marvel.
yeah,
But yeah, no, Afterlife I enjoyed because it was, it didn't mess with, it didn't try to go back, it didn't try to redo anything. It just kind of picked up, it took the established mythology and it just built on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty heavy with, all the Easter eggs and the fan service and stuff like that. Sure. But I mean, I'm cool with that. I don't mind a little fan service. Personally, for me, Frozen Empire, I didn't really care for that much because I mean, it was okay, but I didn't find it scary. I didn't really find it that funny either. But I did appreciate that they weren't, trying to reboot things. And speaking, Nadav, I just wanted to say about when you mentioned the thing about remaking Psycho. Here, I'm going to throw a movie at you from the 80s that I think personally, and I've been saying this for a long time, is begging to be remade, and that is The Last Starfighter. I think that
yeah.
movie had so much potential, but people, they didn't care. They didn't like the CGI at the time, the 80s CGI. They thought it was a ripoff of Star Wars, all this kind of thing. But I think in today's, with what we can do now, and with the type of premise that it has, and the theme song is fucking amazing. It's a very underrated theme song. I think that movie is just begging for a remake. Like, that's what you really need to do. Remake stuff that you can actually improve upon. Don't try and don't go back to the well and try and improve on something that's already perfection.
Yeah.
Remake
You know,
something that
For me.
could use
Yeah, go
improvement.
ahead, Virgo. Go ahead, Virgo.
when you guys were talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife, the thing that, and I think Nadav, I'll touch on your point. I think that the thing that I liked about the Ghostbusters Afterlife was that it felt like Daniel, as you were saying, thematically, it felt like a continuation of the '80s movies,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of reinventing the wheel with the 2016 one, and but the one thing that I think like a franchise that kind of went off the rail, and I liked Afterlife for that reason. But when I was watching, I think it was like the second Jurassic World movie where they
Hmm.
get into like the cloning the dinosaur into the girl, and then they're,
Yeah.
it becomes like this other whole entire science fiction genre thing. Like it just doesn't feel like Jurassic Park. It feels
Mhm.
like this dinosaur thriller that's removed from the original themes, I think that's when the remake or the sequel just gets totally, as they say, right, jumps the shark or nukes the fridge for the Indiana Jones, which which
Nukes the
which I
fridge.
love, by the way. I love Nuke
Yes.
the Fridge. I love that
That's a
sequencing
great one.
Crystal Skull gets a lot of
in the
flack.
I
I
love
enjoy
Crystal
it.
Skull.
Yes, I enjoy it as well.
But definitely, I think that point, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the studio interference. I don't know who's saying these are good ideas. Let's clone a girl dinosaur. I don't know, but like, it just doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
Like the extinction part of it, it's like, yeah, we've been waiting for that, but the stuff that followed it, it's like filler. It's just they're just filling the pages up with stuff that we haven't seen, we haven't done. Let's just try it, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think just
They're doing another variation again, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
Jurassic.
With
Scarlett
Scarlet Joe, which
Johansson.
I don't know how that's gonna go either. Looking at it, I'm like, oh God, here we go again.
So that definitely Virgo, that definitely fits in what Nadav was talking about. Like for me, I agree with you. There's a threshold with that franchise for sure. It's just like, Chris Pratt does an awesome job as far as the character is concerned, and yeah.
What?
I'm sure that would translate.
Yeah.
I talk to raptors. I'm a raptor
That's
whisperer.
control of Velociraptor.
There you go.
I'm a yeah, a raptor whisperer. Speaking of franchises that went off the rails a long time ago, and some would argue right from the beginning, I would say would be Resident Evil. I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil games.
Oh,
The first
my God,
one,
you hit it right on the nose, man.
Oh, the first one
and two, sure, but like
yeah, the first one was okay, but just oh my God, I mean, and forgive how this sounds. This is gonna sound bad, but like it's
you were forgiven, my son.
What's that?
You were forgiven, my son.
Oh, thank you. Paul W.S. Anderson does those, and basically, I mean, really, all of the sequels, all the up teen million different Resident Evil movies that he's done, and and the subsequent strange monster fighting spin-offs, in my opinion, are really just an excuse for him to put his wife in an action porn movie. I mean, that's what he does. He just puts Mila Jovovich in some. Because I mean, look at the Resident Evil sequels. Look at all of them. There's like action sequences that, I mean, it's like somebody jumping over a fence, and there's 20 cuts. Why? Like it doesn't. There's no. The story is lame. It's just just rehash, and it's just like. I just gave up. I tried watching the second one. I'm like, oh my God, this is a piece of shit.
Did you watch the animated version? The animated movie?
No, have I seen the animated movie?
That was actually better than all of them.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. But I agree. Paul W.S. Anderson is an interesting, he's an anomaly because like he does all these awful movies, and Alien vs. Predator being one of them.
Is probably his best movie is probably Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat, exactly. He's the guy who defied the rule that you can't make a video game into a half decent movie, and he's the one that did it. And he did Event Horizon, which I would argue is a pretty decent film as well. Gory, horrifying. Great haunted house and space film. But then he does Alien vs. Predator, and he does all these Resident Evil sequels, and it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you're so brilliant over here, but you're such a hack over here. Like, what? Like, good Lord. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They looked at Steven Seagal's career and they said,
oh.
that guy knows.
If we're going to talk about Steven Seagal, we're going to talk about Van Damme. Like, I mean, come on. Like,
man.
Oh, I love Van Damme. When he came back and he did that commercial. Oh, no, that was Chuck Norris.
That's right.
No, was it Chuck Norris or was it It was Van Damme who did the splits on the two trucks. And then Chuck Norris did the parody version of it. Right.
Mm.
Van Damme. I'm a huge Van Damme fan. So I remember watching Saw. We were talking about franchises that went off the rails. I remember watching Saw. Really enjoyed the concept. I thought it was a really cool concept. Like Final Destination was a cool concept. And then they just like MTV'd it up. And I was like, oh, I wish they hadn't done that. It could have been like it could have really traumatized people,
Yeah.
versus, just being flashy. But I remember years later, my brother's like, oh, I just saw 7. You should really watch it. It really ties the whole thing together.
It ties the whole thing
And I'm
together.
like, I didn't realize they had made a Saw 3 yet. So
Yeah.
I'm good.
And then there's all these spin-offs and Jigsaw and all these other things, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man. At some point, I don't know. I followed through with them for a while, and then there was one where like the opening scene is where a guy is like, he's resetting a trap, and there's all these like body parts falling, and it's the first shot. And all these body parts falling out of it, and blood and guts and everything. And I'm like, this is just gore porn it's just gore for the sake of gore. Like I just don't care anymore. I gave up after a couple sequels, and I was like, yeah, no thanks.
It's interesting when it's too far, and then and then when it's gory but it works. Like
Yeah.
what you just said, like the opening shot, and I immediately thought of Breaking Bad, the episode after they melt the body in the bathtub, and then it falls
yeah.
through
Oh,
because
Which
he
one?
melts
Which
it with
one's right? Which one are you
hydrochloric
talking about?
acid, and it melts through the tub. And then
sounds
so
just-
basically the
First
first
season,
shot is
yeah,
them
yeah.
just cleaning up bloody guts,
oh,
and it's just
sounds
like it's a
disgusting.
horrific scene.
Oh my god, it sounds horrible.
But it's like it's funny. Like it's so
Yeah.
darkly funny, like he's just like, why do you want me to like get this stupid plastic bin to put a body in and melt it when we have a perfectly working bathtub upstairs? He's like, and then it's just,
Oh man.
but like it's because you're like, oh well, these two idiots don't know what they're doing, and now within 2-3 episodes they're just getting rid of bodies.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is good. This is going to go bad, guys. You need to parachute. Pull that. Pull that
Speaking of
parachute.
darkly
Get
funny,
out, get out. That's what makes the whole show so great, is that's the beginning of it and where it goes. But
yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of darkly funny, have any of you seen the 1988 The Blob? One from the
No.
80s?
yeah. At least parts of it for sure.
Parts of it, yeah. There's a scene in that where, so it like, it's a blob and it ingests people, right? It basically like, melts them, whatever kind of thing. And there's one scene where it grabs a guy. I think he's cleaning up a kitchen in a restaurant or something or whatever. And it comes out of he's checking, there's something weird going on in the drain in the sink in the kitchen. And it comes out of the drain and grabs his head and like the whole upper half of his body and sucks it into the drain of the sink. So then the sink drain, it kind of like bubbles all out and starts squirting blood, and then his legs are just doing this. So it's like, okay, so it's ingested this guy and compacted him down in like a millisecond into the pipe of the sink. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous. It's so horrifying, but so ridiculous at the same time. And it's just like, oh my God.
I mean, sometimes
Nadav,
that stuff can be fun. I feel it's more powerful when there's like a reason behind it. Like there's this. Sorry, go ahead, Virgo.
No, I was just gonna say you touched on it. Final Destination. I think that it's a series that it's intentional, but then it's accidental. When you watch like the opener of the second one with the highway, shot in Vancouver, right? Like that the highway opener haunts me to this day. Anytime I
That's a
see
lot of people.
A
the
log
wood
truck.
logs, right? A log truck, I'm steering away from that. And also, if a can, like a pop can, falls on the floor, if I'm drinking and I'm so scared that it's gonna get behind my brake or get behind the gas or something and launch my car off. So it's accidental in the story. It's all karmic, right? It's all karma. It's a series of events that just like this thing leads to that thing, leads to this thing, leads to that thing, and that accidental death, and it's just horrifying. And I think those are the scariest moments in movies, when it feels accidental, and but it's shot so intentionally, right? So
Yeah. I mean, Jaws is a perfect example of why I still to this day have a fear of the ocean. I'll go into the ocean, but it's right there. I don't know what's underneath that water.
Steven
Yeah,
Spielberg
yeah,
did
yeah.
his job.
Terrifies me to this day.
yeah. Yeah,
I used to
yeah.
even do cliff diving back in Croatia when I was like 13, 14. But now to actually even go into the ocean, I'm kind of like looking with my goggles, what the heck's swimming around me, right? Like I only go wading in so far. So I totally feel you on that one.
Yeah.
After I saw when I was a kid and I saw the cover of the VHS of Ghoulies, for the longest time I was afraid to sit on the toilet. I mean, you have to, but
I mean,
but I had this
yeah.
fear like something's not going to pop out of the drain in the toilet. Yeah.
So I have a horrible fear of ghosts. I remember like
Mm.
I couldn't watch Ghostbusters. I couldn't watch Gremlins. I couldn't watch Ernest Scared Stupid. And so I remember when I was
Wow.
really young, I just said, you know what? I'm going to choose one thing, and that's the thing I'm going to be afraid of. And it was ghosts. I chose ghosts.
All right.
And so that moment on, I could watch demons, I could watch monsters, I could watch sharks, I could watch, disasters of all kinds.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost Dad scared the crap out of me. Where like I'd be sitting there being like, I'd be in the bathroom and I'd be like, man, if Bill Cosby just pokes his head through that wall, I'm gonna freaking lose it.
Well, I
And
think a
I
lot of
understand that
people
has a
would.
lot more in connect now, but like
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Oh
back when I was like 7, Bill Cosby scared me.
Then don't watch the TV series Ghost Adventures.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, like when he's like wrapped up, walk. Oh man, just yeah. So Ghost is my thing. I mean, I remember watching Sixth Sense, and about 20 minutes in, just the thought is like, why are all these ghosts in his house? I'm like, well, I won't be sleeping for 6 months. And when to know that 20 minutes into a movie that you're just like, I'm in it and I'm screwed for the next 6 months, but it's so good, you still have to sit there and watch.
Speaking of which, how many of you figured out that it was actually he was the ghost early on, not at the end?
Oh yeah, no,
Mm,
right over.
yeah, no, right over.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
the end, you
Somebody
figured it
spoiled The
out.
Village for me though. Like before I even saw it, like, oh, this happened, da 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 da. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh, I
don't
didn't.
don't
For me, it
spoil a
was
dynamite
like
movie.
for me, it was like at that point where he goes, the line, I see dead people, and he's
Mhm.
like literally like looking at them.
Yeah.
That
It's
intensity that he threw back with his eyes,
So many
that's
breadcrumbs.
what got me. I'm like going, wait a minute, maybe Bruce Willis is the ghost.
Mm,
That's when I kind of tuned in.
So
okay.
that scene specifically, like the editing, like if you want to like study how to edit a scene, like that scene is really interesting because
Mm,
you're right to pick up on the clue because when he says I see dead people and then he says I they don't know they're dead, they go right on to Bruce Willis.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
Haley's like I see
Mm.
dead people, Bruce
But
Willis, they
Boom.
don't know they're
the few
dead,
second,
and
few,
M
Hello,
Night
hello,
Shyamalan's
people.
like we can't do
but
that.
the
Everyone's gonna get it.
Yeah.
but the few seconds
And nobody
before,
did.
as he was saying his line, you look at the intensity of him, and he's like looking like right at Bruce Willis, and he's getting an intense fear. Like that's what for me is that he pulled off that particular scene really well before he flipped to
Mm,
Bruce Willis.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Another brilliant
yeah.
scene from Sixth Sense is the one where he's sitting down at the restaurant with his wife, and you think like just as it plays out, you think, okay, well, it's as they're having a conversation, they're having difficulty talking about talking about the relationship, whatever, da 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 da. He doesn't really kind of say much, um, and then she's like, oh, I can't do this anymore, da da da. Just gets up and leaves, and then like no, seeing it as it makes sense when you're watching it, but then seeing it now, I mean, that scene easily plays out just as well with, her being there by herself. It
Yeah.
doesn't,
Hmm.
just the way
Well,
it all plays out, what he doesn't say and what she does say, it's, it could work either way, like whether he was there or not.
Fight Club, I mean, Nadav, I mean, your
Hmm.
film, Fight Club, I mean, this is a film, same year, I think, 1999. Like, I mean, effective in that way with Pitt's character and Norton's character. Like, when you're watching it the first time around, I had no clue. I remember watching it when it came out, and I had no clue that they were the same guy until the very end.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's an interesting year. I think 1999 might go down as one of the best years in cinema. When you're talking about Office Space, you're talking about Fight Club, American Beauty was out that year, The Matrix. Those are kind of
Mm-hmm.
four films that kind of dealt with that office life environment. There's like a
Mm-hmm.
scene in all those films that
Yeah.
deal with the office life environment and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like rebelling against the mundane.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like a very powerful year. And I think definitely yeah, The Sixth Sense was just a great film. It was a sleeper hit, right? No one really expected much out of
Yeah.
that movie. But
Same with
yeah,
Matrix.
yeah.
Matrix,
Yeah.
nobody was interested in seeing the Matrix, but when it came out and I was dragged to go see it, a bunch of friends and I would always go see movies every weekend. And they're like, let's go see the
Yeah,
Matrix. I'm like, all right, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Monday, everyone was like, yo, what is the Matrix? You saw it? I'm like, oh, dude. It was like I had never been flocked to
Yeah.
for having to
Yeah.
go and see a movie, and
I've
everybody 3 days later was like, yo, what is this movie that came out this weekend? And you saw it? And I'm like, dude. It's interesting because we've been talking about a couple of different films, and sort of what I love talking about films the most is sort of like how something like The Sixth Sense can start off with this shot, play a scene, and you imagined an entire scene like led up to that moment.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the filmmaker knowing, well, they're gonna piece in all of that. I don't even have to worry about it. Just continue the scene. And then when
Mhm.
I flip it on them, all of a sudden they realize, oh wow, my perception of this whole thing has been completely skewed and completely played with. And my favorite thing, getting the opportunity to film so much over the last 2 decades, is sort of getting better and better at sort of realizing like this is my canvas and anything happening outside of that canvas is irrelevant, and anything that's inside of that I can manipulate. And understanding the psychology of people watching the story and how much they'll fill in, being able to then like play with those expectations, like to sort of lead people down one trail only to flip it on them.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
you know, my whole venture into film is through Fight Club. It's why it's like my favorite film.
Oh.
I saw Primal Fear with Edward Norton, and he shot to like top list of favorite actors. I was like, oh, I've never had a favorite actor. Anything this guy's in, I want to see because it was
For
just
me, it
such
was Boiler Room.
it's such a brilliant Boiler Room. Yeah, yeah. Like it's great films. But Primal Fear, like his performance, I was like, this guy. And then all of a sudden, this trailer for Fight Club drops, and it's coming out on October 15th, 1999. October 15th is my birthday. I was turning 16. The movie was restricted. I needed an adult to go with me. I spent 2 months campaigning my mom. She was like, fine, I'll take you to go see this movie. But my mom likes to do her own research. She was working at the University of Ottawa in the Women's Studies department, and a very, very hateful review of the film came out, talking about its violence, its misogyny, its toxicity, what you would call toxic masculinity today. All of those things. Oh, very, very accurate, by the way. Like they don't paint women well in this movie. And I'm sitting here going, I can't argue that. They really don't paint women well in this movie. But that's kind of like the whole point. I mean, even Tyler Durden at one point says, we're an entire generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need. And then Edward Norton at the end of the movie chooses a woman over Tyler Durden. So like there's your answer. But I campaigned for 2 months, got her convinced. She read this review, said, I am not taking you to see this movie. So I skipped school. It's my birthday. I'm skipping school. I'm going to sneak into the theater. I'm going to watch this movie. And that morning, I'm watching TV, waiting for the movie theaters to open. Rosie O'Donnell starts talking about Fight Club. And I'm like, she's going to have Edward Norton and Brad Pitt on. This is the greatest birthday gift of my life. Wash upon me. The next words out of Rosie O'Donnell's mouth, yeah, I didn't understand the movie. I'm going to help you out. They're the same person. On national TV, on my
Oh.
birthday.
No
I'm
wonder so many
skipping
people
school to
hate
go see
her.
this movie, and Rosie O'Donnell ruins the movie for me. I just went to class. I went back to school. I told them everything. And I'm like, this is why I'm back. This is the birthday ruined.
I hope the
So
studio sued her.
a year later, I'm watching the movie in my friend's basement.
Yeah.
Everybody gets together. There's two movies to choose: Fight Club or this other movie. I chose the other movie because I already know the ending of Fight Club and I don't want to see it. I'm over it. I get outvoted. They put in Fight Club, and it's the first time I have ever known the ending of a movie, and nobody else in the room knows it. And I'm picking up on everything. I mean everything. The suitcases are the same. The like this, that, the flashes of Brad Pitt all over. I'm like, what is happening? And everyone's like, what are you talking? Like, what? Everyone's freaking losing their minds. Everyone's being blown away, and I am seeing a movie deconstructed and reconstructed in a way I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Immediately, like that night, ran home, found the script online, read it, studied it, and started writing my first screenplay the next day.
Wow. So
Because
knowing,
that
seeing that-
experience of knowing the ending and nobody else, and getting to watch the audience like completely miss everything, and I'm like, you can get away with so much.
yeah,
You can get away with
So
it
is a
improved the experience
concept.
for you.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, I think we should probably wrap up. The intent was to go for an hour, and we've gone for 2. So I'm sure we could go at length all evening for several more hours if we really wanted to. I love the topics and things that have spawned off from this and from our discussions. Thank you so much to all of you for being part of it.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Nadav and Virgo. Awesome perspectives and points of view. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, you too. Likewise.
Yeah, to get to know everybody. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, guys. And I had I had a couple more topics that I was going to throw out there, but I think save that for next time. The next time that we have a panel. So.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. All right. So thank you guys, and thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the future.